Hi, my name is Mark Kirsten. I've been a docent here at the Lincoln Park Conservatory since 2016. Now we're going into my favorite room. It's called the Orchid Room, but it's much more than that. We have in this room, we have orchids, bromeliads, cactus, carnivorous plants, ant plants. I'm sure I'm missing something. So we'll start with one of my favorites. This is a pitcher plant, a tropical pitcher plant. These are carnivorous. All carnivorous plants have something that attracts bugs to them. Some of the plants they all have like a fluid in there that when the bug goes in, they get stuck. And then sometimes right away the plant will produce a fluid that will break it down. Sometimes the fluid's already in there. Some of these pitcher plants in the Philippines get so big that they found that they can digest rats. So what we do here at the conservatory is any child under 35 pounds who's misbehaving, within 2 hours into the plants. We always ask people to, make sure that they know what kind of shoes their children are wearing, because I do put the kids in upside down. So there are over 140 different kinds of carnivorous plants in the world. They grow on every continent except Antarctica. I think the closest ones you can find are in a bog around the Indiana dunes. Most carnivorous plants grow in very boggy areas, and that's how they get their fertilizer. One of the big pitcher plants, they found that tree shrews use them as bathrooms, and that's how they get their fertilizer. And in a book I read, they don't call those carnivores, they actually call those crapivores. So
really?
Yeah. Now as far as orchids go, there are 20,000 different kind of orchids that grow in the wild. There's over 110,000 different kinds of hybrid orchids. Since the 1950s, they found a way to mass produce orchids. And the way they do it is they cut out the mitochondrial tissue, they put it in a glass bottle with a rubber stopper and water inside, and they put it on a wheel that rotates it. And that piece of mitochondrial tissue ends up turning into hundreds of orchids. Then they take those and keep moving them to bigger and bigger bottles till they get to the point that they can put them in some kind of soil, or not soil, but pine bark or something. And now it used to be that poinsettias were the biggest selling plant in the United States, which is amazing because it's only a seasonal plant. Now orchids are. One of my favorite orchids though, and I don't know if you can get a picture of it, is this. This is a Dutch shoe orchid, and I just love that they look exactly like Dutch shoes, like little wooden shoes. Out of the 20,000 different kinds of orchids in nature, there's only one that produces any kind of food, and that is the vanilla orchid. And vanilla orchids are really interesting. Vanilla orchids, when they bloom, they get a yellow flower, and they must be pollinated within the first 15 or 16 hours that that's open. If they're not pollinated, the bud falls off and there's no vanilla pod. Vanilla is the second most expensive spice there is. It was started in Mexico, but they found how well it grows in Madagascar. About 80% of our vanilla comes from Madagascar. And they were having so much trouble with theft, they had to find a way to stop people from stealing. So someone in Madagascar came up with a little contraption. It's a little thing that closes. it has a set of pins in it, and when they put it on the pod, when the pods are new, just green, it puts a series of numbers in the pods. And when these people take these pods to the market, those pods have to correspond to the person bringing them in. I think in the last 5 years, vanilla has gone up at least 10 times. The only other thing that's more expensive than vanilla is saffron. And saffron, if you don't know, comes from crocuses. 1 acre of saffron crocuses produces 1 kilo of saffron, which sells for, the last time I heard, for about $10,000. But it's very labor intensive. The plants have to be hand picked, and it's only the pollen and that area that's used. This, a couple years ago, it's been hanging here since I've been here, but about a year or two ago, it was most likely about twice as big, but it fell. But it's come back really nice. We'll now go into bromeliads. So we have air plants, which are a bromeliad, and we have these kind of bromeliads. Now everything in this room is what they call epiphytes, that they don't need soil to grow. Most of the time they'll grow on trees, or some of these will grow high up in the canopy to get more sun. The cool thing about bromeliads, these bromeliads, is they all have to be watered from the top. They don't get any water from their roots, though they do have roots only to hold them in place. So what happens with a bromeliad is usually the center piece will get a bloom. And then once that center piece is done, it'll die back. But it'll have on the side of it a small one, which they call a pup, and that's where your next set of blooms come from. Bromeliads are amazing as far as color goes. We only have some blooming today. Another interesting thing about bromeliads is we have big ones like that. Those grow in the Amazon, and because there's always water in the top, frogs lay their eggs in there. The eggs hatch, the tadpoles grow up, and don't leave till they become frogs. By that time, the parents are sick of them anyways. Unfortunately, these aren't blooming. These are bamboo orchids. When they do bloom, they have a beautiful flower. The problem is it only lasts for a day. So one thing about a lot of plants is they get their names from what people first saw. So you can see how it's sort of segmented like bamboo, and that's how I got the name bamboo orchids. Bamboo itself is the fastest growing plant in the world. Some bamboo can grow 2 inches an hour. And it's in the grass family. And it's a great renewable source. We also have a lot of cactus in here. It's mostly the kind of cactus that don't have spines. So they're not sharp. They're more like in the Christmas cactus family. I know we have some cactus in the back that are mostly like desert cactus. The problem with those is when they bloom, they're night bloomers. They open at night. They close as soon as it becomes light. They're beautiful flowers, but because the insects are most likely only out in the desert when it's cool, that's when the flower opens. So you only have that one night to see that bloom. Oh, what else? I can go on for hours. So another bromeliad we have, which people most likely don't know about, is our pineapples. So I don't know how many types of pineapple we have here at the conservatory. I know we have one that grows like a smaller pineapple, and this is the first time in the 4 or 5 years that I've been here that we've had like a full-size pineapple. Pretty exciting.
It is very exciting.
is our other koi pond. We did a couple years ago have baby koi because our fish spawned and it was really nice. Thing about orchids is all orchids have 6 petals. It's hard to tell with this, but that's a number of flowers there. It's not one. They're very hard to see. Inside some of these, inside they have like a small little, looks like a clacker from a like a bell, and that's most likely how it attracts its pollinators. In this area, we have ant plants. So all these plants that they consider ant plants, like this, and you'll notice some other plants that are on the wall, they're sort of flat. They all have a symbiotic relationship with ants, which means they live in the plant for protection and they do something for the ant. They do something for the plant so that the plant lets them live there. This is one of my favorites. This is also an ant plant. This is called a bullhorn acacia. It's a form of mimosa. So, we have ants on here occasionally, but they're really not the kind that would live here. What the ants that do live on these kind of trees do is they help pollinate it, and their droppings help fertilize it. And that way, the plant lets the ants live in these thorns, and that's what protects them. Really cut this back. But if you, I don't know if you can see the leaves, but if you can, and you can try to remember what they look like, I'll show you another set of leaves that sort of look like that, but are a little different. One of our many bromeliads. The colors are just beautiful.